What's going on, everybody? Thank you for clicking on to another episode, the third episode of It Gets Better. Today we've got Nerdiebirdie from YouTube going to be telling us his story. Do you want to go ahead and just kind of like tell people what it is? I know I have the summary, but I feel like it would be a good way for you to kind of like hop in.
Yeah, so my story isn't really anything super out of the ordinary. A lot of people face similar circumstances to what I was going through,
Yeah.
but what I started going through began pretty early on in my life, and the thing was I didn't know anything was wrong right away. I didn't realize there was anything wrong with me or wrong with my life or anything, but around fourth grade, probably. Um, I've always been a shy person, everything, but around fourth grade, I really started to drifting away from my classmates and everything.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I wasn't part of things to an extent. Um, and ever since fourth grade, that feeling kind of got worse and worse and gradually started forming into what I know now is depression, social anxiety, and general anxiety. Um,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Trust me, I got questions.
Okay. So yeah, the situation that we'll probably mainly be talking about in this podcast is 2 years ago in October, I believe it was. I was getting to a point where ever since fourth grade, it's been going downhill. But 2 years ago, it kind of hit the climax where I was thinking, okay, I'm sad all the time. I've got no friends. I hate going to school every day. I don't like living this way. So I decided I didn't want to live anymore at all.
Yeah.
Um, I wrote a couple notes to my parents, to some of my friends, and the only friends I had at that time were over the internet. So I had nobody in my state for a good few years. Um, I wrote them notes, and my internet friends, ended up calling my. Sorry, my printer's going. Okay, there we go.
You're
We're good.
good.
So my internet friends ended up calling my parents in the middle of the night, basically, when I told them what I was planning to do. I was in a state of mind where I didn't think they would care that much. I didn't think they would do anything about it, but they obviously did care enough to call my parents. And I just remember my parents getting this phone call, and I heard the terror in their voice, and they burst into my room, and obviously I got help and diagnosed after that. But that's kind of my situation. Is I haven't had anybody for the most part of 4 years here in my state.
Yeah.
So loneliness, depression, social anxiety, that kind of stuff has been a huge part of my life.
So, I guess let's start here, right? So, you said fourth grade, right? Is when this stuff started setting in.
Somewhere around then, yeah. Before then, I remember just kind of being a normal kid. You get along with everybody, you're friends with everybody. Fourth grade was probably the first time I noticed that it didn't feel like that anymore.
So, how, feeling the way you did, how do you feel like do you feel like you missed out on, I think, like developmental opportunities is like the way to say it. Like, do you think because you started being affected by anxiety and depression at a young age that that's kind of, you know, changed what you're capable of being because, the opportunities you would have had when you were younger versus now are different? Or do you think, for the most part, you're still like captain of your ship and you can be whatever you want to be?
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. My mom actually says a lot of times that socially, I'm developmentally where I would be. I kind of stopped growing developmentally. Eh, Getting my words twisted up. She says that I basically stopped developing socially at around fourth grade. So I haven't had all these years to kind of increase the social aspect of myself because I stopped using it around fourth grade, and ever since then it's just been diminishing and changing. I've been trying to stay out of social situations,
Yeah.
stay out of situations that give me anxiety. So I have stopped growing, definitely, and I definitely, definitely notice it's hard for me to make friends. It's very, very difficult because I just don't have that type of social skill you're talking about.
So, I mean, so part of the whole reason I even started this podcast is because I was diagnosed with like manic depression when I was, shoot, like 12. Like at first I thought I was bipolar and I went through like doctors and stuff like that.
Mm,
And eventually I started going to like therapy. Like I stopped seeing a psychiatrist, stopped taking medicine, and I started going to counseling and like talking about shit and keeping a journal and writing things down. And all that is to say is for me what helped me understand like how to navigate socially is that I came to the like I had the epiphany that I was nervous about going out and being social because I wasn't sure what to do in those situations. And after probably like way more talking than was even necessary, I figured it out, and I kind of moved past that. So it doesn't sound like it, but I'm curious, like, have you started tackling that part, the social anxiety part?
yeah, so 2 years ago when that situation happened where I was very close to ending my life, I immediately got help and therapy and everything. The therapy was more emergency type therapy for, obviously somebody who was in a suicidal situation,
Yeah.
and they just wanted to de-escalate that situation. It wasn't planned to be long term. Um, so therapy ended pretty quickly. I'd say 2 or 3 weeks probably of that, and then I was taken to a psychiatrist as soon as possible, and I've been on meds for about 2 years now. I've had some changes with him and everything. Um, what you're talking about, getting over it. Like I said, therapy stopped for me very soon after that whole situation. But recently, I've actually decided to start again, not because I'm feeling like I was then, or nowhere near that extent, or because my parents pressured me or anything,
Yeah.
but because this is my last year of high school. Next year, I'll go into a whole different world, meet tons of new people, and that is what I consider to be my best chance to start things over.
Yeah.
So I want to go to therapy to learn to make up for the time that I've lost since fourth grade. Like I said, I haven't really had. I've in total throughout high school, I've probably had a friend here for a total duration of 6 months. I've only had two friends in high school that are in my state, and both of them combined probably about 6 months. So mostly I've been talking to people online, which has been very hard to not really have anybody outside your family here for years and years and years. Um, so that's what I'm trying to do with going to therapy now of my own free will, is try to make up for the time that I've lost and see what I can do differently in college to kind of correct my life. I'm not at the point yet where I feel like I'm in control or where I am totally healed, but I am definitely on that path, and I'm taking actions to ensure that I'm doing the best I possibly can for my health.
So, you're saying correct your life. That kind of makes me wonder. So, in your experience, were you a different person or are you a different person before and after your attempted suicide? And
That's
yeah, go ahead.
that's kind of hard to answer because it was for such a long period of time. Um, I haven't been the same person I was before fourth grade for a very long time, and I don't think I necessarily changed a whole lot after the situation 2 years ago, because that's just kind of who I am now. I've definitely started to view things in a more positive light, and I've definitely started to try to find ways to improve myself rather than focusing on I'm feeling these things and I just can't do it anymore. I've definitely turned that, and the realization that I have back up a bit.
Yeah.
When I was diagnosed 2 years ago, that turned a switch for me because all these problems that I was facing every single day, feeling sad, feeling lonely, feeling worthless, all these feelings finally had a name, and that name was depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
Real things, real chemical imbalances inside my head, and I understood this is why I'm feeling that way. And there are things I can do to correct this path. There are things I can do to become whoever I would have been if none of these feelings would have been here.
Right.
I think that's the best I can really say on that, for sure.
So I definitely want to talk about that more, but the question I had, like the second question I had a couple seconds ago was, what was your experience like? Like, can you try to walk us through, for people who are listening that might not be affected with depression and stuff, what it was like to be at that low point in your life, to be like so depressed and distraught that, suicide, like ending your life, was what seemed like the most pragmatic thing to do?
Hmm. Yeah, so for people with clinical disorders such as myself, if you don't know clinical, I'm sure you know, but for the listeners out there, um, you can have depression and anxiety non-clinically. So say you get in a car crash or something, then you could have some sort of PTSD or anxiety involving that, and it would last for, maybe even up to a couple years because of that incident.
Yeah.
There are other people who have clinical depression or anxiety, which is you were either born with or chemicals changed during your lifetime that will most likely result in you having this mental disorder for probably the rest of your life. It's just something you have to deal with.
Yeah.
That's clinical. So my stuff is definitely clinical. I've had it for probably a decade now or something. Um, so so part of the hard part of that question is you feel it to an extent daily. It's a daily struggle. It's something you have to learn to live with and fight through. Um, but in regards to 2 years ago, it definitely was kind of a culmination point. So backing up a little bit, probably a year or two before I tried to end my own life. Throughout grade school, as time went on, past fourth grade, I started losing more and more friends. By about the end of seventh grade, probably I didn't really have anyone at school. I kind of went through eighth grade for the most part alone. And then freshman year, I met some people online. We became very, very close. I met them in real life a couple of times, but it was very, very difficult because I literally went probably about a year and a half with no human face to face friend interactions.
Yeah.
And that's something very hard for me to even describe to you, to have the total lack of human presence. I did have friends, they were very, very close to me online, but not being able to physically touch someone or physically hear their voice every day or see them every day, it totally destroyed me, and it made school awful. As I went around and I saw these people, they were laughing with their friends, they had people to sit with at lunch every day, and I had no one for over a year, and probably for the most part of 5 years now. I haven't really had anyone. So at that point, all my feelings of loneliness, which I had had during grade school, even while I had a couple friends in my state, in my city, in my school, culminated where I didn't have anyone except for these people online. And then what probably triggered it was um, I was dating one of these people, and they broke up with me. One of the people who I knew online. So that kind of just brought it all crashing down on me that I'm about to lose this online connection and this is the only thing I have. I haven't had friends here for like 2 years. I don't know how to make friends anymore.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder.
About how could suicide be the option that you come to? How does that ever, why would that ever seem okay? It's weird because being able to reflect on it 2 years after the fact, I can see how totally twisted my mind was. Like when you're in that situation, you truly, you can't think straight.
Hey, are you there?
Cared about me that I could not see that people obviously did. I didn't. Oh, can you still hear me?
I can now, but just like heads up, there's like large swatches of your conversation that's like dropping. Oh snap!
Is this better?
Let's try it. Let's see. So what were you saying? I'm sorry, like before.
Where did I cut out it?
I mean, you cut out twice, pretty big before. I know you were saying about how now in hindsight you realize the way you were was kind of like twisted or warped compared to like who you are now. You spoke about how you were dating someone and you were about to lose that connection, so kind of somewhere in there.
Yeah, so one of the people I was dating online broke up with me, and that was not why I became suicidal, but I think that was the trigger for me realizing that, oh my gosh, I have no one here, and if I lose this online connection, I don't know how to make friends in real life anymore.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: Did you ever so when I was dealing with the depths of my depression, I kind of like dissociated. And for me, it felt like I was kind of like something in a husk experiencing the world through my eyes, if that makes sense. And I didn't have like social skills or the ability to talk to people. Did you ever have that, or did you kind of feel like always conscious of yourself and in your body, but just um, depressed?
hmm Yeah, I can't say I ever felt like a shell of a person or anything.
Yeah.
I felt more. I was alive, but my mind was not there. Like it's hard to describe. It's like I was living, but wasn't really living for anything. So I was eating, I was drinking, I was going to school and everything, but for what purpose? And every day it just felt like, why do I keep going through these motions? Why do I keep doing this over and over again? Going to school, which I hate, going back home, feeling like I'm worthless because I can't talk to anybody. I can't go out to the mall with anybody.
Yeah.
Every single day just felt worthless to me. So I can't say I felt like a husk of a person, but I can say that I felt empty, very empty inside.
And you weren't doing anything like drugs or drinking at this point, right?
No, no, I was not.
Okay. So, I guess what was it like when you really became aware of the issue and like realized you needed to do something like your because it sounds like medicine is one part of it, but that also you kind of decided that you needed to take like ownership of your life and give it
hmm
meaning. Like, does that sound correct or am I off?
Yeah, and the weird thing is I didn't do anything to initiate that. The thing that initiated that change in me was other people um, deciding, okay, this can't keep going. This has to stop. Something has to change. When my internet friends called my parents, that was a wake up call to all of us. My parents hadn't been realizing that I was thinking like this. My friends didn't realize I was so serious about it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was hurting so much until other people came in and changed everything for me. So that's when I started seeing, okay, I have real issues. I have physical things in my brain that are warping how I see things, and I need to change that. I need to do something rather than let it tear me down, break everything. I need to start doing something about this.
Do you fault your parents for not catching on to this? Do you resent them or anybody in your life for not, you know, seeing the signs, I guess, and doing something to help you, or like what are you feeling there?
I definitely do not blame anyone. It was something I tried to hide. I think a lot of people going through tough situations want people to notice them, and they want help, but they don't want to ask for it, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
They want other people to say, "You're hurting, I'm here for you," but they don't want to admit that they're hurting. And I definitely did not want to admit I was hurting for whatever reason. I just went through it. I'm like, this is my problem. I'm gonna do it myself. And I told myself that because nobody else was helping me, they didn't care.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that at all. It's because they didn't know I was hurting because I was hiding it from them.
So, what were your first? Ooh, yikes! What were your? So, like, can you walk us through what it was like for you? You know, the first month or two when you decided. So, like, obviously, that's pretty baller that you had friends who would make the call for you. Because I think a lot of people, especially who are feeling like depressed or, you know, kind of disenchanted with things, would argue that people are selfish and, you know, they're not out to try and help. So, yeah, I just kind of want to point that out, highlight that, if you will, because that just seems awesome. But what was the handoff like between your friends saying like, "Look, you're kind of fucked up right now. We're concerned. We're gonna go talk to someone," to you saying, "Okay, I get it," and then starting to address it? Like, what was it like when you started trying to fix this?
Are you talking the situation itself or how things worked out in my mind?
Um, you know, not any particular situation. I guess just like tell me about that period where, you know, you were new to counseling or acknowledging what was going on and trying to,
Okay.
yeah.
So after the whole the phone call and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So I think all of us were in a little bit of shock, probably. My parents realizing, oh, okay, we had no idea our son was going through any of this and he nearly killed himself. And me going with, oh, okay, so I have three mental disorders and now I'm on drugs and in therapy. Okay. So, I mean, honestly, I have to say that that call and the immediate response to getting me into therapy and getting me hooked up with medicine was the wake up call that changed my perspective on things because it was so big and it felt so real, and everything before that point was just emotions and me telling myself I wasn't good enough, and that didn't feel as real as literally going to the hospital or wherever
Yeah.
to get something done. So I don't know if that applies to as many people because it's not normal to have a that big of something happen like that. Um, but I think the point in that is that other people coming around and showing you this is a legitimate problem, this is something that needs to change, and we're going to help you change it. That's what totally turned my life around, not the fact that I did anything to beat it. It's the fact that other people decided to step in and change my life.
So, I wonder, do you define yourself with or by your depression and what you've been diagnosed with, or do you accept it as part of your identity and like seek to otherwise like define or enrich who you are?
It's like I said, with it being clinical, it is definitely part of who I am. It's not something that I can go through therapy and just it'll magically go away. And maybe in a few years it will, but for right now and for the past decade or however long it's been, it hasn't. So it's part of who I am, but at the same time, it's not the extent of who I am. It's something that affects me. It's something that I struggle with. Alcoholics, they have a tough time with alcohol. That's something that makes life more difficult for them. It's something they have to struggle with constantly. But at the same time, that's not who they are fully as a person. That's just one struggle they're going through. So
So,
how I see it, go ahead.
well, okay, so let me like try cuz I feel like I did a shitty job asking that question. So like I mean, take this with a grain of salt because I don't think anybody who's not like horrendously socially awkward would do this, but it's kind of like um trying to like overview it. When you if and when you're in a social situation or something like that, do you say, hey, my name is Nerdiebirdie and I'm clinically depressed and so on and so forth? Or are you like, hey, I'm Nerdiebirdie and I'm into making like YouTube videos. I'm about to go to college. I have this depression thing and I'm working on it, but it doesn't like rule me.
Right. Yeah, that's something that I see a lot more on social media and everything, where either people will completely hide their mental problems, the things that they're really, really struggling with, they'll either totally hide that, or they will flaunt it about like it's some sort of trophy, like, look at me, I've gotten depression. I
They
know
wear the
what it's
victim
like.
badge.
Exactly. And they're like, I know what you're all going through. I've been through it. I know all the answers. I know how to get through this. Neither of those are the case. It is something that is part of me. It is something that connects me to other people who have the same issues. And it is something that has changed me in such a way that now my future career goal is to become a psychologist, perhaps a therapist, and help
A
people. There we go. And help people with similar problems to what I'm going through.
So that's
So
no, go ahead.
so it's something that sets me back as a person. It's something that I have to struggle with and get through, but it's also a blessing in that I can use it to connect with others and help them when I can. I don't know all the answers. I'm still going through it myself, but I can reach out to others. I can show compassion for them, and I can at least understand an inkling of what they're going through and kind of associate myself with them.
So first, I want to say that's really awesome that that's your goal because I myself actually this so I'm in college. I started late and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. But after yeah, after some rigmarole, I kind of actually decided that being a psychiatrist is what I wanted to do. So hell
Hey, there
yeah,
we go. We could
yeah,
make a team.
exactly. So yeah, hell yeah that you've decided to do that. And then so you actually hit the nail on the head. And I think people who like follow me on Twitter and stuff like that know that like wearing the victim badge and like flaunting it, I mean it just doesn't make sense and it's annoying. So I wonder for someone like you, why did you decide or how did you decide that that's not for you? Like what was it inside you that said that enabled you to say like, yes, I'm Nerdiebirdie, I have this, but this isn't like, so to speak, who I am.
Hmm. Um, I'm not entirely sure to answer that because it was never really. That's just not who I am as a person to flout things about like that. So
Yeah.
it never really occurred to me that hey, maybe you should do this. Um, I I'm a very strong Christian, so I try very hard to not let what bothers me, what affects me, what I am struggling with define me because I know who I am in God.
Yeah.
And I know that what I'm going through is only a struggle, something that I can use to connect with others. So as open as I can be. I could be more open about it, and I definitely need to work on that. But I try to be open on social media, on YouTube, on things like that, not hiding the fact that I have these issues, not trying to make a big deal of them, not trying to say I'm going through them worse than anyone else or make a big deal out of them, but being able to mention it and have that be okay. Have that be okay that that's part of me, that I'm going through this, I'm struggling with this. I don't have all the answers yet, but I want to get rid of the stigma around it, that people either don't mention it or they go all out, and that defines them. I don't want either of those to be how I treat depression and anxiety.
So, God, just to tell you, I'm so stoked to meet someone who like doesn't want to wear the victim mantle. So, I mean, do you what advice or what would you want to say to those who maybe that's what they're doing or that's the only way they know how to handle their depression right now? Like, would you give them any advice if someone like that were to come up to you and say, Birdie, what do I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, first of all, I think it's important to note that these people are in need of attention. Um, and that can come off as really cocky, or they're just, because in our society we view attention grabbing as something that is bad, that's annoying, you don't want to do that. And that's true to an extent. But with people who are struggling very hard and they make that their whole personality, that their whole social presence, they're doing that because they want to draw attention to the issues of themselves and get those fixed. So I don't agree with what they're doing, but at the same time, I don't think it's fair to attack them or anything and say that they're purposefully trying to draw attention to themselves because they're I'm at a loss for a word there. You know what I'm trying to say. They're trying to
Yeah.
get attention just because they're greedy, evil people. That's not how it is. I would say to those people that what you're going through shouldn't be your definition of who you are, because if who you are is wrapped up in your issues, are you trying to get those issues solved? And if the issue is solved, what's left of you? Who are you without those issues? Because that's what we want to shine through. We don't want depression and anxiety to shine through your life. That's the total opposite of how to beat depression and anxiety. We want you to shine through your depression and anxiety and show people that, yes, I struggle with these issues. Yes, these are real things, real clinical things that people struggle with, and that's okay. However, I am working on beating these things, not letting them take over my life, take over my social presence, take over. That's not what we want.
So earlier you spoke about attention, and um, I agree with you. I think people who do that, who identify as the victim and put that out there, on Twitter or what have you, maybe that's the only way they know how to do that. So, from your perspective and going through what you've gone through, one, what's the right way? What do you think is the best way to give someone who is going through these kinds of things constructive attention? And then if you were trying to help someone process their depression or their grief, um, you know, and again, speaking from your experience, what advice would you give someone like them for seeking like good constructive attention from others?
Mm-hmm. So some of my internet friends who I was very, very close with and I met in real life a couple times also struggled with forms of depression or anxiety. And as a person who is very, very emotionally involved in relationships and everything, their anxiety and depression gave me anxiety and depression because I was so worried about them.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went to the internet and I started Googling how to cure these types of depressions and anxieties. And looking back on it now, that was the absolute worst thing I could have done, because I'm just a kid. I'm just a teenager. Even as an adult, unless you're professionally trained, you can't cure depression or anxiety. I kept telling myself, I'm going to cure their depression and anxiety. I'm going to help them. I'm going to make them all better. I'm going to fix their problems. And you can't look at it like that. You can't be a good enough friend and know all the answers to just cure depression and anxiety. The perspective I have on it now is that you have to love that person through their depression and anxiety. It doesn't even have to be a topic you talk about. You don't necessarily have to talk about their specific depression and anxiety. You need to love them, love that person with or without their depression and anxiety, rather than focusing so much on these issues and trying to fix every little part of it. You need to love that person and strengthen them, give them the confidence to fight their own battles.
So, okay, and then another thing, going back to, um, you're saying, okay, so these people, they get wrapped up in their victim identity, and if they solve their problems, if they work through their depression, what are they, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. So for me, it started off with programming, and then like I read heavily now, and then I have hobbies like this and video editing and YouTube and all that. And so, to each their own, and there's no like right hobby or anything like that. But I mean, what kind of counsel would you give someone for branching outside of their depression and creating a new identity for themselves?
So yeah, I haven't figured out totally how to beat it or be totally happy or anything like that. But what has helped me in the past 2 years is having a little bit of a group. I have a group online called Nerd Nation. Link in the description. We play Minecraft together and stuff. So it's been nice to have people to at least talk to online, even though I'm not super close friends with any of them. I have those people to talk to and interact with at least. I as well as you, I do video recording and editing, which I find to be super fun. So hobbies, definitely one thing. Putting yourself out there in groups. I would say even if you don't necessarily want to be in a group, if you're struggling with depression or anxiety, I think it's normally healthy, unless you have like severe social anxiety or something, to at least be in a group where you can interact with people. Because if you totally isolate yourself, speaking from personal experience, that it doesn't lead anywhere good. So I would try to be in a group, try to find hobbies, and try to discover, if you didn't have these problems, who would you want to be? I think that's a good question to ask yourself. But like I said, I don't know the answers for sure.
Yeah.
I would just try to, again, try to fight against your anxiety and depression rather than just looking at how awful it is. And it is awful. It is, but you need to focus on other things or else it's going to take you over.
Would you say that your social anxiety ever came from a place of not knowing what to do in social situations?
To an extent.
And is that... Oh, go ahead.
No, keep going. I'm thinking.
And then I guess I just kind of wonder to that, like, how did you notice yourself improving? Did you, go to a therapist and talk it out? Excuse me, and your therapist gave you things to try, or did you just kind of put it on yourself to, like you were saying earlier, put yourself in a group because, in more cases than not, it would probably be good for you, and just like learn how to navigate those situations yourself?
Yeah, so honestly, I haven't worked on it. I haven't gotten better. Um, I'd say honestly, I've gotten worse. I'm totally isolated now. I don't really talk to anybody. I'm not in any group. Certainly not at school. Um, I go to youth group every week, but don't really talk to anybody there. So that's about it. So no, I have not recovered. I'm not really doing something at this moment to become better. However, the therapy I mentioned that I wanted to get, that I'm going to now, um, that is the primary concern. That's mostly why I wanted to start therapy, because I don't feel it's necessarily going to be too beneficial to me to start, you know, interacting and everything in my last semester of high school. So I thought I'm going to do my best to talk it out with my therapist, get it all set up, prepare myself mentally for college, because that's going to be my chance where nobody knows me. I'm going to be able to start totally new, and that's where I'm going to really start pushing myself socially. Honestly, right now I'm not in a good place, so I couldn't tell you I've gotten better yet, but I'm definitely working on it.
So it seems easy for you to talk right now, and you know, I'll give you that we're perfect strangers and that right now we're not even like video chatting. So I wonder, is it like, why is this? You're saying you're not working on your social side. So why is this experience, this conversation right now? It doesn't seem like it's painful for you. Why
No,
is that?
it's always been that way, sort of, on the internet. I don't think this is going to reveal any deep truths about people or anything, but I think it's just me personally. I'm usually pretty good with calling people over the internet. I'm usually less good with um, video chat. Like one of my internet friends who I was really close to a couple years ago, I knew her for probably 2 years. We were really, really close friends. I called her my sister. We called each other sister and brother, and we had never actually met in real life, but we were very, very close.
Yeah.
In my entire relationship with her of 2 years, uh, I never once could video chat her without being incredibly socially anxious and having to hang up because I was so panicked about it. I don't know why. I could video chat my other internet friend who I dated. I could video chat her very easily, but with my other one, I just couldn't do it. So I don't know. I think that's just a weird thing about me. I have no idea.
Fair enough. Do you think you are losing anything? Okay, what's the value of having online friends versus in real life friends? And do you think that the friendships you're forging online are helping you or are better preparing you to make friends in the real world? Or is this more like a uh, stopgap type thing where, you know, for better or for worse, you're taking the path of least resistance to meet your needs?
Um, so right now the people online are the only people I have. Like I said, I'm not really super close to any of them. I'm friends with them, but we're not like really tight friends. Like we talk every day, we PM all the time. I
Yeah.
don't really have anybody like that. Um, so in terms of the relationships I have online right now, I'd say they're kind of just more casual friends, or people to do things with, or people to talk to from time to time. I think they are helping me to make friendships in quote unquote the real world next year in college.
Yeah.
um, just because without the people online, I'd be totally alone. I'd be way more depressed, and I wouldn't understand how to talk to people as well. So I think online is a good second option. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the first. Not to discredit online relationships. Like I said, I've dated long distance, and it was the best relationship I've had of my life.
Yeah.
However, those are very, very difficult to maintain. They're very, very difficult to even come across. And real life is just, quote unquote, again, real life is just better. Even if it's with that person online, if you were face to face with that person, your relationship is going to be so much stronger. So I guess my point is internet friends are good, but if at all possible, I would try to make connections offline, at least in addition to online friends.
So it seems fair to say that They're not a cure all, or I would say necessarily comparable to having in real life friends, and that's something you look forward to having in the future.
For sure. I'm a very touchy person, so I like, holding hands with a significant other or hugging a friend or things like that. And that's things you can't do online. And that, for me at least, that really hits me down deep somewhere and creates feelings of loneliness and things. So yeah, I agree with you what you're saying.
So, all right. So let's look to the future. So you're in your last year of high school, right?
Correct. Yep, last
Okay.
semester.
What are your plans for starting college?
That is what I'm going over with my therapist. Don't have it totally set out yet. We're working on being able to initiate conversations and things like that. Really, I just think I need to put myself out there more. In high school, I did not try at all to put myself out there or to join any groups or to make any friends. I really didn't do any of that. So, basic people skills is something you sometimes have to learn if you have social anxiety because you're behind socially, and that's okay. You just have to work on it. You have to work on basic people skills. You have to work on being able to spot those people you might be able to connect with well and get to know them.
So I'm asking this because, I mean, this is something I had an issue with at first, because I was really like, when I was really struggling with this kind of stuff, I first came back to my senses, so to speak, and then my my social purview or awareness expanded. And I wonder if this is the same for anybody else, or what your thoughts on the situation might be. And it is this. So, when you go out and you start talking to new people, you're obviously not going to make friends with every new person you meet. It's not always going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that, does that thought seem reasonable to you? Does it stress you out? Like, how does that make you feel?
The fact that you won't be friends with everyone you speak with.
I not okay. So let's let's narrow that definition a little bit. It's not just who you speak with; it's who you try with. So you might try
Okay.
to make a friendship with someone. So you might put in the effort to go see them after your late night class gets out, or you just got done at work, and y'all might hang out, but nothing really materializes friendship wise.
Mm-hmm.
Is Have you thought about that, and how you would deal with that?
Yeah, I don't handle rejection very well, so something like that is definitely something I think about when trying to make a new friend. Um, but at the same time, it is part of life. We live in a sinful, a broken world. It's not always going to work out, and sometimes it's actually a good thing because if they don't want to put in the effort, you really shouldn't be putting in the effort either because you're just going to end up hurting yourself. But it's a risk you have to take. I would say it's scary, it's stressful, but I would say you're going to make relationships, and sometimes they're going to work, and sometimes they're not going to work, and you'll learn from the ones that don't work, and the ones that do work. That's great. You have yourself a friend.
So what do you least look forward to in, I guess, the next phase of your life?
Um, More of like fears or things I know will happen.
In general, it could just be, as you sit down and you talk with your therapist and you start to consider your life more wholly. And I think for you, it sounds like you understand there's going to be, or you want there to be, a clear delineation between who Birdie was in high school versus who he is in college. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, knowing that that transition is, pretty darn imminent at this point, like it's coming up quickly, what gives you the most, like, anxiety, or the feeling of like, oh my god, I really don't want to have to do this?
um, that would probably be. if I can't manage to switch things up this upcoming year, my freshman year, I'm worried that will take itself over to the rest of college. And once college ends, I have no idea how people even meet each other out of college. Like, I don't know how I would do things if I don't start forming relationships in college. If I don't change as a person during college, I don't know how I'm gonna do it after. And that's definitely something I worry about, and part of why I decided to go to therapy, to make sure that this first year of college is gonna help me out in the long run.
So have you ever thought that maybe it's not college that's what's changing you? It's that you now have the freedom to decide what you do and, to some degree, depending on your situation, how you do it.
Um, yeah, I think it's partially that I'm getting older, partially that I'll probably be moving away. I'll be living on my own. Just that change of everyday life can kind of change how you view life. It's kind of like moving to a new house. You view that as a new chapter of your life because all your surroundings are different, all the people around you are different, you're living differently. So for college, it's the first time you're going to be out on your own. It's the first time you're going to be away from your parents with a whole bunch of different people where you get to make your own decisions. And I think you can start over at any point of your life. You could start over tomorrow if you wanted to, but big movement of situations like from going to high school to college are definitely good ones to go with, because nobody knows you and you have a chance to completely start over without having to change everyone's minds on who you are. You get to form their initial opinion of who you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, so one of the things we kind of have here in our, like, well, in my show notes for this is something you said saying, "How have I grown since this event?" Um, Throughout this conversation, I think you've been pretty candid or straightforward in saying that, you know, I'm not 100% yet, and that's fine because it's a process.
Right.
What would you say have been your concrete points of growth since doing this? Since, you know, taking you know what I mean. I feel like you know what I mean.
hmm I think it's more a mindset shift than it is necessarily growing entirely as a person, whether it be social anxiety or depression or things like that. I get depressed less often, but I think that's because of my mindset changing when that whole event happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I realized what I was feeling wasn't right, and that other people feel that way as well. So my goal shouldn't be to tell myself how horrible I have it. My goal should instead be to look how that situation 2 years ago, as well as the things I deal with day to day now with depression and anxiety, how I can use those to connect with other people and understand them and to better myself. So somehow this depression and anxiety that's supposed to be tearing me apart has started to change me for the better and make me see how much better I can be and start taking steps towards that. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I view it.
For the people listening, are there any resources or communities that you found beneficial in helping you get to a better place in life that you would share with others?
If you're going to school, I know schools often have counselors, which you probably don't want to talk to because it's kind of embarrassing, but
Yeah.
I would encourage it if you're going through a very difficult time. Not necessarily because they'll help you, but because they have a lot of resources. They're equipped with resources, like they can help send you to therapy if that's what you need, or they can give you websites or talk to your parents if need be. So I would definitely talk to, as they say in textbook examples, talk to a trusted adult. But for real, that does help. I would discourage trying to self-diagnose, or
So kind of
trying
like
to,
wearing the victim badge, saying I am this.
yeah, yeah, um, or even trying to find out necessarily what you have. So if you think you have bipolar disorder or whatever, personally, I could be wrong on this. Personally, I would discourage you from trying to go online or take, bipolar tests online or whatever, because you're going to trick your mind. You're going to tell yourself, okay, this is me. You're going to start to identify with that, and you're going to be drawn more into it. If you're diagnosed, let that diagnosis be by a professional
Yeah.
and not you telling yourself, okay, this is me. This is what I'm like. Don't tell yourself that. You be you. And if you have something, let a professional tell you that. Definitely get professional help. But don't say you have it because you think you have it, and definitely don't go on social media and rant about how you have it. Talk about it on social media, but be honest with it. Don't pretend to know all the answers. Don't pretend that it's fine that you have this or that this is as far as you're going to get. You need to be better than that, and you need to get help if you need it and push through it. Like I said, shine through depression and anxiety. Don't let it shine through you.
So, I guess the last question I'll ask you before wrapping up is what would you say for those who are still lost in the minutia of their depression is the difference between like advertising their depression and what you and I observe as people just wearing the title versus speaking about it in such a way as to raise awareness.
Could you repeat the question? I'm not totally sure what you're asking. I'm sorry.
So what's the difference between wearing the victim badge on social media versus speaking about it on social media where you're raising awareness but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. To me, it's hard to draw an exact line, but I think the distinction is on outlook. So I think a lot of people who, let their issues become their personality or their online presence or anything. Am I cutting out again?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I saw you typing. Sorry. um, I think people who let their issues become their online personality or their personality or whatever, or, just go on rants about it, tend to have a negative outlook on it and say, oh, look at all these things, all these bad things happening to me. Look at how hard I have it. Look how difficult it is. Somebody empathize with me. And that's understandable because those people need attention. Those people need help.
Yeah.
What I try to do is to spin it into a more positive light. That's something I think about a lot on all of my social media posts, especially the ones that relate to depression, anxiety, is mention it. Say that, okay, I'm dealing with depression right now, but I know that I can beat it. So I think raising awareness is accepting that you are above your issues and not letting those issues be the end all be all, but rather you personally beating those issues. That's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to raise awareness that I had a really bad day today. The goal is to raise awareness to I had a really bad day today, but I can beat this and so can you.
So, good conversation, good talk. Where can people
Yes, yes.
go to learn more about you?
More about me personally. I know in the description of this podcast there will be links to my Twitter, YouTube, and Discord. I'd encourage joining my Discord because my community is on there, my kind of friend group I've built up over there as well. as my other links to social media and things being on there. But yeah, definitely check out Spooky Pete because he seems like a really cool guy. I don't know who the heck he is, but
Yay!
boy, he seems cool.
Well, thank you, sir. Awesome. Yeah, well, don't feel free to come back. Don't be a stranger. Let us know how things are going. And I guess I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, I'd like to say something real quick if you don't mind.
Shoot. Go for it.
I just wanted to, well, first of all, thank you for having me on here and everything. But second of all, I really, really appreciate how you're doing this and you're not making it all about you, because your problems are important as mine for sure,
Yeah.
but to be able to get other people's stories and not just focus on your own stories, I think that raises so much awareness, and this show is really, really cool. So you just keep doing this, and I think you're going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm blushing like a little bitch right now, but thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I will. I promise. Oh,
All right,
all right.
good.
Cool, man. Give me one sec.